some of the people, before I forget it, this one, international roaming. This one. We need not only for this one, but for this one. But this one. Isn't it? Maybe not, I don't know. Because every day I will be recording. This one, this one can be used the local network there, wherever you go. We can. I will speak with Jairam. Maybe he can arrange the local. I mean, every place local SIM card. Yes. I will speak with him. We can arrange something. Okay. I mean, because international roaming it's like very expensive, basically. So okay. Yeah. So it is like 150 rupees. 150 rupees is only rental per day. And again, like if you call and if you use the data, again that is an additional charges. Oh, it's not a flat rate. No. Okay. So that's why we are activating only for your now. Okay. So otherwise, this is like we can use the local. Like the problem when we use local SIM card when we have a new number. Yes, Maharaj, but there it's okay, Maharaj. I mean, we are not using anyways the phone, right? We are using only the data. Right. So, but that won't be an issue. Yeah.
Sri Prajgashagra Stotra Satya Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhagavan Sharanam Bhaktivedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki Manta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Skandiviti Founder Sharia Divine Grace of Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Samagaya Bhakti Ki Harinama Sankirtan Ki International Bhagavatam Ki Thy Bhakti Tivanam all glories to give some religions, all glories to give some religions, all glories to give some religions, all glories to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Gauranga. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyanandanashalakaya Chakshavindekam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Vishnu Sapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Ramayam Dadati Sadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavam Sri Rupam Sahajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadhuram Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Sri Radha Krishna Radam Sahagana Vedita Sri Sajanvitam Sha Hare Krishna Krishna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Sankara Namaste Saptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sudevi Namami Haripriye Panchakalpa Virugyasya Vasudu Jaivasa Madhimanam Kamanenyo Vaishnavedyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Jayamati.
Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, this is a great means of conquest. Let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nara Narayana, the supreme human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Sri Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayashabhatresu
Nashta Prayudresu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Tamasloke
Bhagavati Tamasloke
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the true devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed, the fact faith to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, and becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama
Idam Bhagavatam
Puranam Brahmasamhitam
Puranam Brahmasamhitam
Tamasloka Charitam
Uttama Charitam
Chakara Bhagavan Rishi
Bhagavan
Vishreyasaya Lokasya
Vishesaya Uddhasya
Dhangyam Swasayanam Maha.
Nityam Svastayanam.
This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all useful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya,
Sri Krishna Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda,
Prabhu Nityananda
Sri Advaita Gadadhara,
Sri Advaita Gadadhara
Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhagavinda,
Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Hare Hare,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Sarvajaya Namaha.
Om Surabhyaya Namaha.
Om Sarvajaya Namaha.
Om Surabhyaya Namaha.
Om Sarvajaya Namaha.
Om Surabhyaya Namaha.
Krotvasarantam Nagayate Grinna Yakripa Punahamye Shri Gurundanataram Yakripa Punahamye Shri Gurundanataram. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our morning Bhagavatam class. We are continuing to read from the 10th canto. And, Canto chapter 12, text number, huh?
12. Text number 12.
12. Okay, text number 12. Yat Pada Vamsur Bahu Janma Krisrato Tritat Babhir Yogi Bhir Api Alabhyaha Sa Eva Yad Drik Vishaya Swayam Stitaha Kim Varnyate Distam Ato Rajau Kasam Yatadapam Sur Bahujanma Krisrato Ritat Mabhira Yogi Bhira Apyalabhyaha Sa eva yadrik Vishaya Swayam Stitaha Kim Varnyate Distamato Rajau Kasam Yatadapam Sur Bahujanma Krisrato Ritat Mabhir Yogi Bhira Apyalabhyaha Sa eva yadrik Vishaya Swayam Stitaha Kim Varnyate Distamato Rajau Kasam Yatadapam Sur Bahujanma Krisrato Ritat Mabhira Yogi Bhira Apyalabhyaha Sa eva yadrik Vishaya Swayam Stitaha Kim Varnyate Distamato Rajau Kasam Yatadapam Ritat Mabhira Sa eva yadrik Vishaya Swayam Stitaha Kim Varnyate Distamato Rajau Kasam
Yatpadapam sur bahujanma krichrato
Yatadapam Sur Bahujanma Krisrato
Ritan mabhiryogi bhir apyalabhyaha
Ritat Mabhira Yogi Bhira Apyalabhyaha
Saeva yadrik vishaya swayam stitaha
Vishaya Swayam Stitaha
Varnyate destamato vrajau kasha
Kim Varnyate Distamato Rajau Kasam
Yatpadapam sur bahujanma krichrato
Yatpadapam sur bahujanma krichrato
Yogi Virapyalabhyaha
Ritan mabhiryogi bhir apyalabhyaha
Yadrik Vishaya Swayam Stita
Saeva yadrik vishaya swayam stitaha
Varnyate Dishtamaho Vrajau Kasam
Kim varnyate destamato vrajau kasha
Yatpadapam sur bahujanma krichrato
Yatpadapam sur bahujanma krichrato
Ritat mabhiryogi bhira apyalabhyaha
Ritan mabhiryogi bhir apyalabhyaha
Sa eva yadrik Vishaya Swayam Stitaha
Yadrik Vishaya Swayam Stita
Kim Varnyate Distamato Rajau Kasam
Kim Varnyate Distamato Rajau Kasam Yat Whose Padapam Su dust of the lotus feet Bahujanma in many births Krisrataha from undergoing severe austerities and penances as a way of practicing yoga, meditation, etc. Kritta Atmabihi,
Atmabihi.
by persons able to control the mind.
The person able to control the mind.
Yogi Bihi,
Yogi bihi.
by such yogis.
By such yogis.
Jnana yogis, Raja yogis,
Raja yogis.
Jnana yogis,
Jnana yogis.
etc.
Etc.
Api,
Api.
indeed,
Indeed.
alabhyaha,
Labhyaha.
cannot be achieved.
Cannot be achieved.
Saha,
Saha.
the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Eva,
Eva.
indeed,
Indeed.
yat drik vishayaha,
Yadrik Vishayaha.
has become the object of direct vision,
Has become the object of direct vision.
face to face.
Face to face.
Swayam,
Swayam.
personally.
Personally.
Sthitaha,
Itaha.
present in front of them.
Present in front of them.
Kim,
Kim.
what?
What?
Varnyate,
Varnyate.
can be described.
Can be described.
Distam,
Dishtam.
about the fortune.
About the fortune.
Ataha,
Ataha.
therefore.
Therefore.
Raja Ukesham,
Raja Okasham.
of the inhabitants of Rajabhumi,
Of the Raja
Vrindavan.
Vrindavan.
Translation and purport by Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Yogis may undergo severe austerities and penances for many births by practicing yama, niyama, asana, and pranayama, none of which are easily performed. Yet, in due course of time, when these yogis attain the perfection of controlling the mind, they will still be unable to taste even a particle of dust from the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What then can we describe about the great fortune of the inhabitants of Vrajabhumi, Vrindavan, with whom the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally lived and saw the Lord face to face? Can you repeat after me? Yogis may undergo severe austerities
Yogis may undergo austerities
and penances for many births
and penances for many births
by practicing yama,
by practicing yama,
niyama,
yama,
asana,
asana,
and pranayama,
and pranayama.
none of which are easily performed.
None of which are easily performed.
Yet in due course of time,
Yet in due course of time,
when these yogis attain
when these yogis attain
the perfection of controlling the mind,
the perfection of control of the mind,
they will still be unable
they will still be unable
to taste even a particle of dust
to taste even a particle of dust
from the lotus feet
from the lotus feet
of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
of the personality of God.
What then can we describe
What then can we describe
about the great fortune
about the great person
of the inhabitants of Rajabhumi,
of the inhabitants of
Vrindavan,
Vrindavan,
with whom
with whom
the Supreme Personality of Godhead
the personality of God
personally lived
personally lived
and saw the Lord
and saw
face to face.
face to face.
Report. We can simply imagine the great fortune of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. It is impossible to describe how, after many, many births of pious activities, they have become so fortunate. Very good. So this is describing the great fortune of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. When the Lord appears and performs his pastimes, some very special living entities get an opportunity to be with Krishna, to live with Krishna, to interact with Krishna. Just like we know how it's difficult to meet a big man in the material world. You can't just walk into Narendra Modi's office. You have to take appointment. You have to be somebody to meet somebody like him, isn't it? Not just any ordinary person can expect to meet a great personality. And of course, all the so-called great personalities in the material world, compared to Krishna, there's no comparison. So it's described how there are three types of living entities. I think we were mentioning that the other day. Are you saying? Yes. Colorful. Hare Krishna. Overflow from yesterday.
Yeah, right.
Hare Krishna. There are three types of living entities that living entities who get an opportunity to be with Krishna. And they are those who are eternally liberated souls. They descend, they come with Krishna. Some of them, they come before Krishna appears. And some of them come when he also appears, like that. And then there are second category are those who are demigods, and the third category, which is of interest, should be of interest for all of us, must be of interest for all of us. Very important to listen to this one. I mean, yeah. Third types of living entities who come.
They couldn't come last year.
Okay. I mean,
Sorry.
That's supposed to happen last night, didn't it?
After this.
Okay. Jai.
From past 2 3 years, he has been regularly attending Mangalarti. No missing.
Is there?
Yeah, every day.
Okay.
Very
So of interest to all of us is that the third category of living entities who get this very rare opportunity to be with Krishna when he performs his pastimes. This is what we are reading in this 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. Are those living entities, some of whom are sitting right here, who are seriously practicing Krishna consciousness and who have been practicing for many lifetimes and who are like ready to go back to the spiritual world. So our acharyas explained that before we go back to the spiritual world, we get an opportunity to go to that place where Krishna is performing his pastime, somewhere in the material world. Krishna's pastimes are eternal, nitya lila. And They're Nitya Lila in that naturally, eternally, they're going on in the spiritual world. And also, whenever the material universe is manifest, Krishna is like, it's a continuous pastime. Krishna is taking birth like he did 5,000 years ago. I mean, we say taking birth, he appeared. Krishna doesn't take birth uh, in the ordinary sense. But his taking birth in the material world is like an ongoing activity. His killing different asuras, ongoing activity. And in each and every universe, the Lord appears for a very short time, 125 years. I mean, for us it might seem long, but in the eyes of Lord Brahma, 125 years is nothing. And it is at that time that those living entities who have been nicely practicing Krishna consciousness and who are just about ready to go back to the spiritual world, then we get that opportunity to be with Krishna and to, we could say, completely refine or fine tune, as they say, our bhakti or devotion, devotional service, and to be trained also by those who are more experienced, isn't it? That is why always we should be seeking the good association of devotees, especially of senior devotees, so that we can advance in our individual Krishna consciousness. So I think half of the devotees who are here missed the text, and the purport actually is a very short purport. So I'll just read it again before we go to the next verse. It's one of those rare purports that is shorter than text. Text is about 7 lines, and the purport is like 2 lines, 2.5 lines. So here's a translation to text 12 from the text, text 12 from the 12th chapter, which is entitled The Killing of the Demon Agasura. Naturally, this is in the 10th canto. So this is the translation. Yogis may undergo severe austerities and penances for many births by practicing yama, niyama, asana, and pranayama, none of which are easily performed. Yet in due course of time, when these yogis attain the perfection of controlling the mind, they will still be unable to taste even a particle of dust from the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What then can we describe about the great fortune of the inhabitants of Brajabhumi, Vrindavan, with whom the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally lived and who saw the Lord face to face? And Prabhupada gives this short report. We can simply imagine the great fortune of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. It is impossible to describe how, after many births of pious activities, they have become so fortunate. So, as we were discussing yesterday and the last few days, uh, this is meant to be our meditation. This is meant to be uh, our focus as devotees. Uh, all of the activities that we're performing, especially those 9 activities of devotional service, Slavanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, up until Atmanivedanam. Every single one of those activities is actually preparing us to live in Vrindavan, to live in Goloka Vrindavan. And therefore, the more we can perform these activities nicely, then we will more quickly qualify actually to return to that original Vrindavan. Of course, Prabhupada says for those who are actually advanced in their practice of spiritual life and devotional service, they're already living in Vrindavan. It's like we have nice stories of so many of our Vaishnav acharyas, personalities like Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivas Acharya, Shyamananda Pandit. These three personalities, in addition, of course, to the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, because they had the great fortune of getting the association, the Goswamis of Vrindavan got the association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Those who came just shortly after the manifest pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like Shyamananda Pandit, Srinivas Acharya, they got the association of those. They didn't actually get the association of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but they got the association of those who received or who were fortunate to get the association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it's nicely described how in their very lifetime, their very short lifetime that we all have in Kali Yuga, we don't live for very long. Maximum, I mean, for most people, 100, and most people will not reach 100 also. And it is decreasing all the time. But within this very short period of Kali Yuga, we, by following this process, especially recommended by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so we have very wonderful anecdotes of such personalities, although still here in the material world, all simultaneously participating in Krishna's pastimes. I mean, inconceivable for most of us, but that is what awaits actually the devotees, the followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And therefore, we can best prepare ourselves not only in terms of performing these spiritual practices like Sravanam, Kirtanam, etc., but also living as close as possible the lifestyle that we read about on the residents of Vrindavan. Just like some of our devotees, probably not many who are sitting here, like he has a cow, Surabi. How many have a cow? Few, I think. I mean, maybe not in your house. He has a cow in his house, practically. You have cows also. Okay. At the farm. Yes. Yeah, right. So, I don't know if anyone had the experience. I was fortunate to have this experience, particular experience, of visiting a village. I think it was in Maharashtra, I forget exactly. And that was really the first time. It was very significant, that particular village, visit in that village. Practically every home in that village, if you've not seen it, you may not believe it, but you have to believe it. Every single home in that village, the cows live in the house. The Goshala is in the house. Anyone ever seen this? You've seen? Yeah. I mean, normally the Goshala is close to the house. In this particular village, it is in the house. You walk in the house. On the left side is the living room, and on the right side are the cows. And everyone's happy. Because, yeah, that is the mood and the mentality. Cows are family.
Family members.
Cows are family members. Someone shared some time back a photo, I think it was on our Global Varnashram mission group, a photo of a family. It's like you take family photo. This family photo had all the children and the cows, because they could not imagine taking, because in those days, that was like a long time ago, it was rare to take a family photo.
Yes, very big.
Yeah. So, it's like a big event to take in those days. Nowadays we go. But to take a family photo in those days, like, I don't know, 50 years ago, whatever, black and white, right, was a big thing. Yeah.
It's a very popular photo now.
Yeah.
Because very rare photos.
Very rare. So they could not conceive of taking the family photo without the cows. And see that kind of civilization, that kind of lifestyle, and that kind of that kind of mentality that comes when we live in that way is like cannot be created, cannot be manifest, which means that ultimately the ultimate uh, mentality that we all need to develop, which is the mentality of Krishna consciousness, therefore cannot be artificially created. Small example also, I was reading some time back how when Krishna and Balaram left Vrindavan, right? It was time. It was time to end Kamsa's atrocities by So Kamsa was thinking that he would end Krishna and Balaram by bringing them to Vrindavan and to arrange in so many ways to kill them, but the opposite happened. So shortly after, sometime after Kamsa was killed, it was Vasudeva and Devaki, who had not had the good fortune of having Krishna with them whenever he would have his birthday. He had so many birthdays. So on this particular occasion, I think it was celebrating his birthday or maybe some other significant event. So it is nicely explained, our acharyas explained, how Krishna, whose most intimate friends are in Vrindavan, naturally. Usually our childhood friends remain our long life friends. We have a natural, especially if we spend many years living, interacting with childhood friends, then they're very special. So naturally, the most special friends for Krishnas are in Vrindavan. So he was going to have a very special event, and he purposely, it's described, that he purposely did not invite his friends from Vrindavan. One may think, why? It's a special event. He should have invited them. But our acharyas explain the reason he did not invite them was that he knew that the mentality of the people in Mathura is very different from the people with the mentality of his friends in Vrindavan, and to avoid any kind of disturbance, potential disruption and disturbance, he preferred to have them stay in Vrindavan. I mean, that's so it means that actually in Krishna consciousness, uh, the relationships that are developed between Krishna and his friends are of a nature and quality that is uh, difficult for most of us, for all of us, actually, to really appreciate or understand. Uh, and this is what those who are, this is being described in this verse, this is what awaits those fortunate living entities uh, who will, after many years of practicing, that is, that's nicely explained actually in the Nectar of Devotion. Nectar of Devotion, Srila Rupa Goswami explains, because sometimes devotees become a little maybe anxious. When will I develop Krishna prema? When will I attain that very high and exalted level of consciousness? So Srila Rupa Goswami nicely explains that by the continued concerted effort of every day uh, practicing our devotional service in terms of sadhana. In other words, sadhana. If we neglect sadhana, then uh, these higher levels that we read about and that are explained by acharyas, they will remain far away. It will take longer time for us to actually come there. But if we are therefore very more attentive and nicely applying the different principles, various, because sadhana means, rules and regulations. So rules and regulations uh, initially may seem somewhat bothersome, or we may not always like certain rules or certain regulations, but all of them, as described in the Nectar Devotion, are meant to help us to actually come more quickly. In other words, there's a natural transition that 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 cannot and should not be forced. Also, there's a natural transition from sadhana, uh, where we have to sometimes force ourselves to perform certain activities, to the more spontaneous and natural ways in devotional service that are described, especially by Srila Rupa Goswami, which means that the more we understand this point nicely, we will be more attentive in our practice of in our daily practice, which means like, yeah, attending Mangalarti. If somebody attends Mangalarti, that means that one more easily and more quickly will be able to advance in Krishna consciousness. Yeah, all of the different practices that are recommended, because majority of living entities who come in the material world are not nityasiddha, unfortunately. The nityasiddhas, the eternally liberated souls, remain in the spiritual world. They come for some special purpose. Mostly they come, as we described, when Krishna performs his pastime. Or sometimes some nityasiddha, someone was asking, among the six Goswamis, which ones were nityasiddha? Prabhupada replied, clarified, that only two of them were nityasiddha. Although sometimes I've heard Prabhupada referring to them as nityasiddha, because in one sense, even somebody might have been on the level of sadhana, after perfecting, after attaining sadhana siddha, we should not make a difference. But Prabhupada in one letter explained how Rupa and Sanatan are Nitya siddha. Others attained Nitya siddha or became sadhana siddha. Three types of siddha, isn't it? Nitya siddha, those who are always eternally perfect, and they generally always reside in the spiritual world. Very rarely they'll come. Very rarely. The vast majority, we are what is called sadhana bhaktas. And by the process that is recommended, we can become sadhana siddha. We can become perfected by the process of sadhana. And of course, there is the third category, which is kripa siddha. Kripa, by some special mercy, one can quickly become liberated also. So we want to recommend to our devotees to especially Sole. One devotee actually in Vrindavan was, I think some of you may know him, Vishnu Nam.
Yes.
Vishnu Nam, who is
From Ahmedabad.
previously was in Ahmedabad, and he's now having the good fortune of developing a project which is not too far away from Vrindavan, connected with self-sufficiency and whatnot. We went to see him. Anyways, he was giving a class some time back in Vrindavan from the 10th canto also, and he was making this nice point, which I think all of us should try to meditate upon, that if we want to understand more clearly and in more detail about Vrindavan, then we should read the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course, we we should also prepare ourselves. I mean, the portion in the 10th canto, which is especially very, I would say, confidential, and for which we need to prepare ourselves, is in reference to the Rasa Leela, the pastimes of Krishna with the gopis. But there are many other aspects in the 10th canto that describe, just like this section here, the previous chapter to this one is like the daily activities of Krishna. So this we can read and we can derive a lot of important instructions in terms of how the residents of Vrindavan interact with one another, how they live, and specifically what are the general activities of the residents of Vrindavan, particularly the activities of Krishna and Balaram. We won't get into this whole discussion, but it's important for parents and for those who happen to be teachers or educators to know about what is actually meant to be the standard of education for our children. Parents generally have children, and although we may not immediately be able to implement the standard that is recommended in the pages of the Bhagavatam, we should endeavor to prepare our future generations of children to actually come to that lifestyle. What time tomorrow when we're leaving?
Evening.
It's in the evening. Huh? Okay. So we have another class tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning we have.
Tomorrow morning. Okay, so any possible comments?
In the morning only, so coming here, he was discussing that in a meditation also all devotees we should have 1 month hour.
Well, normally one should have 10 or 20. One is a good beginning.
Yeah, just to begin with.
Yeah, wherever it's possible. I mean, it's like our situation is such that still probably the majority of our, the majority of our temples don't have cow.
Yeah.
I mean, like a dedicated cow uh, to render service to the deities, because traditionally, as we know, every temple has Goshala. Every temple has lamb also, isn't it? Like in,
Yes.
yeah.
Actually, you really give a nice point that see even in spiritual life also whatever practices we are doing we get inspired by the activities happening in temple or even by the acharyas. Like we do chanting because we are seeing also it's happening in temple, devotees are doing it. When we go to temple, devotees they tell about chanting, reading Bhagavatam every day, attending classes,
Yes.
Aarti. So deity worship, all these activities are also taking place in house because we are also getting inspired by the temple.
Yes.
So when it comes to cow protection or cow care, we call it cow care.
Yes.
So it's not there in the temple. So how will get
Yes.
to learn on this, or how will get the courage also to keep cows or to maintain cows?
Yes. Yes. Well, that's one of the reasons why Srila Prabhupada gave that standing order that for every temple within a certain distance there should be a farm community where naturally cows are kept, so that devotees from the city can go and occasionally visit, interact, etc.
At
Like
least to
that.
develop some kind of attraction for the cows.
Actually, uh, we need to make steps in that direction so that we become more conscious. I mean, Krishna consciousness is all about becoming more aware, more conscious, isn't it? Ultimately, of Krishna, but we can facilitate our becoming more Krishna conscious by being conscious of what is. We were making this point yesterday. What is dear to Krishna?
Yes.
So uh, the simple lifestyle that we are reading about of the residents of Vrindavan, they're growing of food and offering nice, wholesome, pure food, uh, and in particular serving the cows in so many different ways. It's extreme. Yeah, the point you're making is that if we don't see that, if we don't experience that, then it's difficult to introduce in our daily lifestyle. And I mean, when we read the descriptions, especially in the 10th canto, and when we hear about what is taking place in the spiritual world, then if we don't have that kind of exposure, if we are not trained now, then we will um, we will not be able to adjust so easily. We'll not be able to adjust at all. Actually,
Yeah.
If you don't have some experience about something, then it becomes very difficult. So, in other words, a very important part of our becoming devotees is being connected with activities and things that are very dear to Krishna. And it's not just a question of uh, showing some, of course, that is important, showing affection and serving the cows, but it's also a much more deep subject matter of understanding that just like the residents of Vrindavan, and for that matter, people not so long ago in villages, it was inconceivable for them to live in a village without cows, because their whole life is centered on cows. They can't do agriculture without the bulls. They can't go from one place to another. They can't carry things because traditionally, I mean, not that long ago, there were no cars, no motorbike, right? People relied on, even it is estimated that bullock cars, although very rare, becoming more and more rare, are still used in many of the remote villages of India. I mean, there are statistics one can find where a lot of the goods are transported and bullocks are still, in certain places, possibly more so than others. But our having been, especially the longer we live in the urban areas or cities, then we lose that connection. We lose the understanding of why seemingly uh, we put so much of importance on cows. And it uh, it will gradually be more easy for us to understand why cows are important when we know uh, and begin to understand how much one depends. The residents of Vrindavan are totally dependent on the cows. They cannot live without cows. Any village community which is not urbanized as they are today will have the same similar understanding that without cows we cannot live, and it's not just a question of them giving milk because cows only give milk for a certain period of time, but they are useful in so many other ways as well. And this is, of course, brought out by those who are giving seminars on, from uh, dirt to soil, dirt to soil. Um, because very important for all of us as devotees to understand why uh, we are facing in the world today the kind of uh, uh, crisis in terms of, for example, agriculture. It is known that the soil today is not at all productive as it was before, and that in many countries, more and more of the land is becoming like desert. It's called the desertification problem, one of the major global problems in the world today. And it's a major problem because the population continues to increase and our ability to produce food decreases. So at one point, it's going to be a major crisis, isn't it? If you have too many people to feed and you don't have enough soil, good soil. Even as it is now, whatever we are producing is not healthy food as it used to be, 20, 30, or 40 years ago. So, in other words, there are many practical aspects. It's not only spiritual aspect. Naturally, we think of Vrindavan, we think about the spiritual activities going on there, but there are also ordinary activities which are also very important. Uh, Anyways, how many devotees here have a personal copy of the book? We should have brought a copy here. Speaking about Vanasa. Who knows about this book to begin with? You have a copy? Have somebody say a copy. Who knows about this book, Speaking about Vanasa? Raise your hands.
Many of our devotees have this book.
Who knows about it first? You have heard about it.
They have already purchased in my.
No, he said he heard about it.
No.
You have a
He said
copy?
he had a copy.
Had or has. Still have. Not read yet. Anyways, it's yeah, you can. It's a very important book because it speaks about so many. I mean, Prabhupada is referring to what's happening in Vrindavan, uh, and I highly recommend that our devotees, like every week, you spend at least half an hour in small group, devotees can read and then discuss. The Prabhupada speaks about so many different aspects. He speaks about agriculture, he speaks about healthcare, he speaks about economy, he speaks about education. All of these aspects are covered in very much in detail in this particular book. And one can benefit immensely, even if one is living in the city. One can learn many, many things actually. Yes. This is the book here, speaking about Varnasrama. It's available actually in hardbound. I recommend you get hardbound copy. We printed like 3,000 copies a few years ago, most of which are yet not distributed. 100% course of Prabhupada on the important subject matter of Varnasrama. So time is ticking away. Yeah. Any last minute?
What I meant to say is,
Yeah.
we are the only organization in the whole world which consumes maximum quantity of cow products like milk, butter. Paneer is every day almost devotees are using. Every festival there is no paneer, no program. So everybody likes paneer, but nobody likes to think of cow. We don't even have that agenda in our.
Yes. That is a major problem.
Everyone likes paneer. Without paneer, no program.
Of course, yeah. But actually, we are, there was a resolution, I think most devotees know, that was passed quite some years back, maybe 5 years ago, whereby, and the date has already come and gone, that by I think Janmashtami 2022, last year, all of the temples in the world should be offering only ahimsa milk to the deities. And I mean, that's like
Ahimsa milk.
Huh?
Ahimsa milk.
Ahimsa milk, yeah, milk from protected cows. I mean, most of our temples are still offering commercial milk.
Yes.
And making paneer and ice cream with commercial milk, which is not at all ideal. This actually should not be done. Because we are encouraging the ongoing, because all the cows from which this milk is coming from are very badly being abused. Modern day, what we call dairy industry. They call it, it's openly known as dairy industry because it's an industry, isn't it? It means that we are exploiting mother cow, just like we are also using the term agro business. Agriculture has become a business, and we are therefore exploiting also Mother Mother Earth. Mother Earth. So we are exploiting the two most important mothers, actually, because without Earth, without cow and Earth, we cannot live. And they are described, we've mentioned this before, by Bhishma Dev as special gifts that have been given to humanity for our proper living and ultimately for more naturally and easily becoming Krishna conscious. And because of the demoniac mentality that is there, and the impurity also amongst those who are even practicing spiritual life, we just cannot so easily understand how it is vital and important, essential to to protect both Mother Cow and Mother Earth, and to develop proper understanding and consciousness of how we as devotees especially have the most important duty and responsibility to do that, because we have been given the highest knowledge. Now our duty and responsibility is to manifest or apply that highest knowledge. We will stop here for now because this has come. And yeah, Jai Jantaraj Bhagavatam ki jai. Thank you all for coming for the Bhagavatam class.